Hey, what's going on, Los Angeles? Welcome to another episode of the Rams Skinny here on the LA Football Network. I'm your co-host, Ryan Dyer, joined as always by the man, Ryan Skinny T. Anderson. Have a great episode for you. As always, when are they not great? At least we like to think so. You will certainly let us know in the comments if they're not. So please keep that up. But hey, mostly always, no, not even mostly, always appreciate the feedback and comments and interactions. So thank you all for that. If you're watching on YouTube, Rams LAFB YouTube page, if you haven't already, please hit that like and subscribe button. It certainly helps us out. If you're watching on our website, lfbnetwork.com, welcome. Thank you. Or if you're on podcast platform and you subscribe to Rams Skinny on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, wherever you get your podcasts, we appreciate you listening there. Today we're going to talk mostly quarterbacks. I feel like we've kind of done it before, but we're getting heavy in the draft here soon. So moving kind of next episode and forward, we're going to do a lot of draft stuff. We'll probably try to map out a iteration of what we want that to look like, whether it's round by round, position by position, and really give you guys a lot of information on the upcoming draft. But today, some news, I don't know if broke is the right word, but some news on Stetson Bennett came out and his potential arrival and resurgence with the Rams. There were some league meetings with Les Snead, and he talked about Stetson Bennett, talked about quarterback position, talked about Aaron Donald's retirement. So we'll get into that a little bit. And then whatever else comes up our way. This is the Rams Skinny. So first and foremost, as always, though, my man Skinny T, how are you doing today? It's a beautiful day after a very strange weather weekend.
Yeah, I totally forgot about it. We had thunder. I heard that this time. And then hail. Did you guys get hail over in Pasadena?
We didn't get any hail in Pasadena, but right nearby, I got pictures from friends. But yeah, crazy rain and lightning and thunder and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know what everybody believes about climate change, but the climate is changing. I don't think I've seen a couple of hail storms in LA in my short stint here, 6 years now.
Yeah,
and
multiple this year.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's been really weird weather. I feel like every show we talk about the weather because it's just been like odd. Like rain is one thing, but like it's like Midwest weather too. Like yesterday was sunny all morning, and then like out of nowhere, just rainstorm came for 3 hours, and then like was cold all night, and now it's beautiful and sunny today.
Yeah. So yeah, it's strange. And if on a different topic, our show is growing. Thank you guys for liking, subscribing, and sticking around and calling some of my takes trash. I see it as a rite of passage. So I love it. Actually, it makes me laugh. And it was that Duran Bland one. I'm sorry, guys. I should have just said Patrick Surtain and get everybody excited. But
see, you're a realist because we all know the Broncos are not trading Surtain. So why even bring it up? It's just not happening.
This is fantasy land, man. This is good times. But if there's anything you guys want us to discuss about the draft heading into it, let us know in the comments, and we can definitely take it that way because this is our first year doing the draft in this format. So, if you guys have any thoughts, love to hear them.
Yeah, absolutely. Like if big boards are fun, if live mock drafts are fun. If we don't hear from you, we'll obviously make it happen and do it. But if there's anything specifically you want to see or listen to, we would obviously love to oblige. So quickly, let's pay some bills. Show is always brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. Head to betonline.ag. Use our promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. Gets you a 50% bonus, welcome bonus on your first deposit. First and second round of March Madness is over, but still plenty of basketball to have fun and make some money. I've actually done pretty well. Like for not watching college basketball at all throughout the season, I've done pretty well in my parlays and my bracket. I'm first place in my bracket right now in the little league I'm in. So, I'm not saying I'm not going to give any advice on that because a lot of it's just dumb luck. But you can do that all on BetOnline, make some money. Obviously, there's some draft props you can bet on. Baseball's coming up. Hockey playoffs are starting. NBA. Everything's at betonline.ag. Once again, that promo code's BELIEVE. Tell them the guys over at the Rams Skinny sent you. Let's start with some Stetson Bennett news, shall we? I wouldn't think it would be a topic of that much anticipation and search and whatnot, but it certainly has been. We've gotten a lot on our website. Social media, it's been trending. So apparently a lot of fans, I'm not saying this in a rude way, but A lot of fans do care. And I'm not saying, obviously, we all care about Stetson Bennett's health and off the field stuff. Absolutely care about that. I just am more referring to, a backup or third string quarterback getting this much buzz and coverage is very interesting. So we will talk about a little bit, but came out today. There's been some updates over the last couple days and whatnot. And yesterday, Kirby Smart, we have an article up on LAFBnetwork.com. Kirby Smart, his coach at Georgia, talked a little bit about, what Stetson wants to accomplish and wants to be given another shot in the NFL. And then today, Les Snead mentioned at the league meetings that they will be, bringing him back into the offseason program. So your thoughts just on, Bennett and his role with the Rams, and we'll keep it strictly mainly football just because there's so much speculation. We really don't know what's been happening behind the scenes. We don't know like how much the Rams have been involved with his off the field stuff, how much he's been on his own, how much family. Like we don't want to, that's stuff we want to stay away from. We don't want to speculate and make anyone think something's happening because we don't really know. So just purely football, what do you think this means for, Bennett and the Rams quarterback room?
Well, it seems like it's great news that Bennett seems to be feeling better, whatever situation he was dealing with. Again, not speculating in any way, but that's fantastic that he wants to get back to football. He's interested in coming back, and he's not an insignificant draft pick. They spent for the Rams anyway over the last few years that's a pretty good high pick. And obviously they were thinking he was going to be. I don't know if they're thinking it was going to be that he was going to be the probable successor to Matthew Stafford, but a guy that could come in the event that Stafford did get injured. We never got to see that, but at this point in his career, in his football career, he is essentially just potential. We don't really know. We saw a couple of preseason games where he played okay. He looked pretty good at training camp, but that's a setting that's much more controlled. You don't have defenses breathing down your neck. So he's a Ram until, his rookie contract runs out. So I think that as many resources as they can provide for him to get him back onto the field and playing good football, I'm for it, for all those reasons.
Yeah. It's, it's interesting. I, first and foremost, happy to, it's trending in the right way. And, we'd love to see him back with the team and whatever that looks like moving forward. But as long as, he's in a much better place and, has the opportunity that he was given last year that, only 256 players get every year by being drafted in the NFL. And so hopefully he's able to get back on track and take full advantage of that. And, it's such an interesting draft pick to begin with because at the time, and obviously, unfortunately, kind of played out this way, but I thought it was a major reach by the Rams. You look at Bennett, and he obviously has winning pedigree, 2 natties at Georgia, but you look at the teams he was on, you look at body type,
defenses,
talent, the defenses he had. We've talked about this. Our colleague Jamal has talked about this a lot. Like if you have all of those resources, like what do you personally add to the pot? Are you carried by those resources and don't mess it up? Or do you take those resources and elevate it? And Stetson Bennett was never going to be a high-end pick. His story is pretty great. How he beat out players at Georgia and his will to win and all that is unquestioned. But when you look at someone, for example, like a Joe Burrow, who ends up becoming the first overall pick, those LSU teams were unbelievable. Some of the best LSU teams, some of the best college football teams of all time. But Joe Burrow elevated those teams. They go 15-0. He has one of the best college football seasons for a quarterback ever. His statistics are off the charts. Like, elevate all these guys. Stetson Bennett probably got carried by those Georgia teams and didn't mess it up, but didn't really add a lot. So that's how high the Rams took him over some of the other quarterbacks on the board. I'm trying to think back off the top of my head without it in front of me, but you think of like a Dorian Thompson-Robinson that went in the 5th. There's other guys that the Rams passed on because they truly believed in Bennett. And Les Snead even said during the draft last year that was the guy they wanted all along. And whether that means that's the guy they wanted all along to take over for Stafford, or just in that draft class to be a backup, that's what Les Snead knows and what we will probably never truly know.
Yeah.
Go ahead, jump in.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic of conversation, which is the Rams front office's ability to scout certain positions really well and other positions not very well. And they don't have a lot of experience drafting quarterbacks, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting in that kind of Shanahan and McVay tree. The development of the quarterbacks has never really taken place. We'll see what happens. What Brock Purdy turns into.
Jared Goff.
Jared Goff, yeah, not drafted though.
Well, Snead drafted him, but yeah, McVay didn't draft him. Yeah.
And we'll see what Jordan Love turns into as well. That's another guy. But I'm just kind of curious if and you look at the other quarterbacks that McVay has brought on, from Bryce Perkins and John Wolford.
Yeah.
Like it obviously it's not a huge priority for him, but like it's always struck me that I don't know if he has the best eye for quarterbacks.
Yeah. I mean, he obviously knew what he wanted in getting Stafford, so the one that mattered the most has paid off. But yeah, you're right. Like they've just never prioritized the backup quarterback, like ever, since McVay's been here. All this talk is about since McVay's been here. And we've talked about it before. Like, I think they need to allocate a little more resources to the backup because we saw what happened last year. I mean, that one game could have cost them everything when Brett Rippon had to play. I'm sure they thought going into the year that Bennett was going to be their backup, and they feel good about it. But still, that's a rookie backup that you really don't know what's going to happen. Like you can think but you really don't know. So, yeah, it's such an interesting, process and how they develop these guys and how much resources go into it and whatnot. What do you think it means? And again, this is him saying he's planning to be reconfirmed with the team. Like nothing's even happened yet. He's not even back with the Rams technically yet. So now we're kind of getting into more of the speculation stuff, football related. They signed Jimmy Garoppolo to a 1-year deal, which we'll talk about a little bit more, him versus Wentz in a minute. Some other comments from Snead, but we'll get to that in a second. What do you think this means for, let's assume Bennett gets back with the team. Off the field stuff is good. Training camp time, he's on the roster. He's good to go. Does it feel like, again, like he'll be 27, basically a rookie? Does it feel like, cool, they have Garoppolo for a year and they hope to hand Bennett the reins next year to be the backup and then go from there? Or is he on a true, like, prove it to even be on the roster this year? And they may even move on, even with Garoppolo only on a 1-year deal.
I mean, I'm going to be the optimistic one here on this side and say that's the ideal plan, is that he will, he'll have 2 years 2 years left on his rookie deal after this season. So yeah, I think the ideal plan is that, they'll move on from Garoppolo and Stetson Bennett will have developed to that point, that he can be a backup.
Yeah.
That's all I can go with. I mean,
yeah.
Otherwise, it's just sad.
Pulling at straws. Yeah. All right, let's get to Garoppolo then. 1-year deal, $4.5 or so million. Obviously, he'll be suspended the first 2 games. They got to hope Bennett can at least make it to the beginning of the season and be the backup for 2 games. That's another story. If you're worrying about your backup in week 1 and 2, you got bigger problems. So regardless, they should be okay. But Garoppolo for the year, a lot of whether fans like it or not, a lot of talk and chatter about why Garoppolo over Wentz. We kind of talked about, we thought it was a little bit more on the lines of Wentz, A, maybe wanted more money, B, wanted one more opportunity to compete for a starting job, which that was not going to happen here. Matthew Stafford's the guy until he retires. So we just speculated it was probably more on the Wentz side of saying, I want an opportunity to start, so I'm going to go to these on the other teams. But Snead came out today and said something very interesting. I'll let you comment on and just kind of say what Snead said about the situation.
Yeah, he said he was everybody was a fan of what Carson Wentz brought to the team, but that they chose to go for Garoppolo over Wentz because he was a better fit for the schematically. He has a more familiarity with McVay's kind of offense. So, it's really interesting.
Yeah, very.
Like I believe I remember reading or hearing or something that, when Wentz came in for that final game, they had to revamp the entire game plan and do it around him. With Garoppolo, they're just not going to have to do that.
Yeah.
He's like the quintessential system quarterback. He's going to run that system, and he did it to a good degree in San Francisco for a good couple of years when he was healthy. They had a winning team, and they went to the Super Bowl with Garoppolo. So
Yeah.
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, when I first heard it, I was like, well, that's odd because Wentz was like on the actual team last year. It wasn't just like a free agent. Like he was on the team, and they're going with the guy that, runs the Shanahan system, which is obviously they're born from the same models and they coach together, McVay and Shanahan. But it at first I was just like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Like Wentz was with you. Like, but then the more you think about it, it's like, yeah, it was a very short time. Like you mentioned, they rebuilt the offense for that game against San Francisco in week 18, for Wentz to run, just because he is a different style quarterback, which we knew he was. Like he's very different style than what even Matthew Stafford is and kind of what the system is. I think he can be a good quarterback in the system personally. Like that's why I wanted them to be able to re-sign him, just because his ceiling, I think, can do this system well. But for someone that's purely going to be a backup that needs to just come in and spot start if Stafford, God forbid, gets injured, it does make sense when you think about it. Like, okay, Garoppolo's ran this similar system with success. It should be a pretty simple, other than maybe some verbiage changes that McVay has. It's pretty, pretty cut and dry what he'll do. So, yeah, after thinking about it more, I was like, okay, I guess I do get it, and they get him for probably $4 million, and I'm guessing Wentz wanted 5, 6, 7, 8 plus. So the money was right too.
Yeah, I definitely think there was a money factor for Wentz as well. Although he's not on a roster yet, so I mean, there's still quarterback needy teams out there. So maybe he's gonna fall to somebody after the draft once that whole carousel gets taken care of. I think he's the next in the line of the Rams rehabilitation quarterback facility that they're now running, where Baker Mayfield gets himself a starting job. We'll see what happens with Wentz, and he had such a terrible year. I mean, he got injured again, which doesn't look good. But look, I mean that Raiders offense looked like trash last year with Devontae Adams.
Yeah, it was bad, and coaching was obviously an issue. But he needs a fresh start, which he may not get any viable playing time if all things go as they hopefully will go for the Rams. But at least
couple preseason games.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he'll have all of them. Stafford won't play, so he'll get him and Bennett will get all the preseason games. So that'll be good.
Don't forget about dress or win, man.
Dress or win. Well, let's end our quarterback talk with this, and we'll get into a few other comments. You wrote an article today on LAFBnetwork.com. Rams pick 52 in the second round. Again, this is not like reporting. This is more just like insiders talking and whatnot, rumors, but some rumors and some chatter. And we've talked. This is nothing new. We've talked about this on this show, but the idea of a Rams drafting a quarterback at some point, whether it's 19, whether it's 52, whatever it may be. You look at this quarterback class. It's obviously the top quarterback is great, but then it's still a pretty strong quarterback class. Matthew Stafford's going to be 37 every year. There's speculation on his injury on this right now, as it stands, one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the game, but it's not, and I'm not saying this is what I would do, but it's not outside the realm of thinking that the Rams will take a quarterback fairly early, especially with everything we talked about with Stetson Bennett. If they don't feel like he's really even a chance of the future, he's a backup at best. Jimmy Garoppolo is only on a 1-year deal. Fans should get used to that. This might be a thought. I'm not saying we're rooting for this to happen because I feel very strongly about that, at least in the first round. But talk about the article you wrote and just kind of what that rumor more was, then we can kind of break it down.
Yeah, basically, ESPN's Field Yates is saying like the buzz that he's hearing is that second round is where the Rams are going to be looking for a quarterback. Now, the reality of that gets a little bit fuzzy when you start to think about the top four spots might go quarterback, quarterback, quarterback.
Yeah.
And that's the top four guys off the board, obviously. Then you got the next tier is two guys, Bo Nix and Michael Penix.
Yeah.
And if by my conservative calculations, if you can even call it that, there's eight teams that are potentially in the quarterback market in the draft. So if they go fast, I mean, other teams might get desperate and pull the trigger on one of those guys, maybe in the first round.
Yeah.
So
by
the time you get to 52, you're gonna have to then go to the next tier, which that tier is like third round, fourth round, and to me that's Spencer Rattler and the Tulane kid whose name I can't remember.
Pratt.
Yeah.
And
that's going to be seen as a huge reach, but as we know, the Rams don't care what we think about if it's a reach or whatnot. If they like a guy, they might get it, which brings the question back is 19 a defensive player, or could they pull the trigger on a Bo Nix at 19?
Yeah, I know it feels like such a wasted pick to me. I would not be happy with it, but when you look at the calamity of what could happen and how quickly it could happen, if the Rams go into this draft thinking, okay, we like these 6 quarterbacks, the top 6, we know we're not getting the top, 3, maybe now not the top 4, because they might go 1 through 4. When you look at Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, and JJ McCarthy might all go in the first 4 picks. So like you mentioned, that leaves those Michael Penix and Bo Nix, and I don't think they're worth 19, but let's say Denver doesn't trade up. They're at 12, and they say, okay, we're going to take Bo Nix. The Raiders are at 13. Let's say the Raiders didn't trade up. They go Michael Penix or something. Or they don't, but then Michael Penix is the only one left until that next tier. And then it's like, do you reach in the second round? So I don't want it to happen, but that's how these things could go down if the Rams think we need to get a quarterback in this draft to prep for the future, because we don't want to have Matthew Stafford retire and then we are rolling with re-signing Jimmy Garoppolo as our starter or something. I mean, maybe fans would rather have that than taking a quarterback at 19. I don't know. But that's just a thought process they could be having of like, how do we prepare? But the counterpoint of that is if we're in this 3-year Super Bowl window, give or take, a lot of people like to refute that we said 3 years, but if we're in this Super Bowl window, there's a huge danger in using the first round pick you've had since 2016 on a position that will not play this year, when you can get a very big position of need in pass rusher or additional secondary, or like we think they might even do, an offensive tackle, which is not as big of a need. But do you want to make a Super Bowl run with Alaric Jackson, or do you want to get a first round graded tackle? So it's that argument of like, are we preparing for the future with this pick, or are we preparing for right now on this run? Who can contribute day one? And that's why McVay and Snead make a lot more money than we do.
For now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that, if I were a GM, I would be picking a quarterback in the draft every single year, not necessarily with my first round pick.
Yeah.
But, Brock Purdy is a perfect example. Jalen Hurts is a good example of quarterbacks that, you can find them anywhere, and you never know what they're going to turn into. So, I think I'm of the view, and people can have a different view than this, of that I think they're in this window, 2-3 year window. Aaron Donald retiring changes a lot of that window. So I'm thinking I've always been defense in the first round and then whatever else beyond that. So if they do go second round, and a couple of years ago they drafted Kyron Williams, they traded up to go get him. And, like my thinking at the time was I have full trust and belief in this Rams front office to make right decisions. and they got one. They got it. They made a right decision. And trading up for a running back it seems like a thing that Les Snead would just never do. But they did it, and it worked out. And that's the funny thing about the draft is, the immediate reactions of it have no basis whatsoever in reality, whether very, very high or very, very low. Everybody thinks their draft pick is going to be the next whoever. Oh, this guy's the next Aaron Donald. It's like, probably not, but like that's the. So you'll never know.
Just a reminder that not to you, to everyone else, or to all of us, not a single pick from the 2020 draft class is on the roster anymore. Not one.
Yeah. Well, and that was the first year they stopped going to the combine too. So there might have been a bit of a learning curve in drafting that way. So yeah, I mean, those are kind of my thoughts on drafting a quarterback. I still think Spencer Rattler's my guy, and if they want to get him in the second round, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I know, and he has like a Stetson Bennett vibe to him too, but I think a little higher ceiling. But it has that kind of vibe to him. Baker Mayfield, Stetson Bennett, like it's that kind of cockiness a little bit to it.
Yeah.
Well, let's segue to this to end it, and it's a good segue because you mentioned him. Aaron Donald. We've talked about it a bunch since he retired a week ago. But obviously, he's a huge hole, and Les Snead also talked about that briefly. So if you want to just comment on what he said, then we can say what we think that actually means.
Yeah, well, he confirmed that they did know going into the free agency period that he wasn't going to be with the team. He was going to retire. So all the decisions that they made had that in mind. And that in the draft, they're going to have defensive line at the front of the mind. He said basically I'm paraphrasing, but every pick, they're going to look at whoever the best defensive lineman is, and determine if it's the right time and the right place and the right player to draft at that point. Mm-hmm. And so this front office does not have a poker face whatsoever. and they just let out a huge clue about what their priorities are going to be. So they're going to be looking in the first round at who's available. They're going to be looking in every round. So that's more than most front offices will let out. So, but it's really interesting. Byron Murphy just went up everybody's lists after Aaron Donald retired. That's where all the mocks just shifted straight to defensive line, and they have a huge need there. We kind of joked that they added Laurel Murchison back on there, and you got Kobe Turner, obviously, who had a great year playing next to Aaron Donald.
Yep, and having Coach Henderson.
Coach Henderson, yeah. So, yeah, it's I've given it a lot more thought about focusing completely on the offense. This was a kind of a point you were making last week, I think, that our defense, the Rams defense has shifted so significantly, because the three pillars of this organization, said by Les Snead, are Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford, Aaron Donald. Mm-hmm. If you're remodeling your house and you're like, well, I got four walls, and you just and one just decides to fall down, you don't have much of a house left. So I have a better feeling about, well, we just got to go all in on offense because our defense has changed just irrevocably.
Yeah. There's no true way to replace Aaron Donald. So they're going to kind of build it as they go and see what works and test out, how they can make it the best it can be without just, I'm not saying panicking, but without frivolously spending, thinking you can somewhat patch the hole left by Donald, because there is no patch. There is no, what's that infomercial guy with the spray on rubber or whatever?
Yeah, I don't know what that's called.
Oh, that's gonna bug me. What's that called? That commercial is so great. But yeah, there's none of that for an Aaron Donald. You just don't have it. So, but it is funny. I'm curious if him saying that they're gonna front of mind his defensive line and they're gonna look at it at every pick, if that hurts them in terms of teams knowing, okay, we can take advantage of the Rams because we know they need this, or in a weird, odd, double negative kind of way, benefits them because they've put in the minds of everyone they need that, but maybe they're thinking differently and they can take advantage of someone else. I don't know. I mean, the Rams have no poker face, but they've also shown they can kind of think 2 steps ahead of everyone else in certain ways, and they think differently as an organization than sometimes all other 31 organizations. So I always am like, man, and you're not wrong. I totally agree. They have no poker face, but sometimes like, or is this a crazy poker face where they're holding the royal flush right now and everyone just thinks they have 2 pair?
Yeah. They're, when everybody else is playing poker, they're still playing 3D chess. So
yeah,
I guess
they're on the Pai Gow table, which I still don't understand how to play Pai Gow, but they're doing something else altogether. Yeah, so it'll be interesting. But so with that, yeah, we're gonna get heavy in the draft unless any news breaks, which I don't think anything will, outside of maybe a couple other small free agent signings, which we'll obviously report back to everyone. We'll have all that coverage up on LAFBnetwork.com. So everything's there, but we'll hit the draft hard. We are almost exactly a month away, pretty much in terms of what's the 26th, 25th, and I think it starts the 26th of April. So a month away of the draft in Detroit. So if there's any type of coverage you guys want to see, again, let us know. But we will definitely have a plan over the next month of how to give you the best draft coverage for this Rams team. It's going to be a lot of fun at the moment having a first round pick to talk about. We've already talked about it a bunch already, even today. But we'll look at some other scenarios what we can do. So, Skinny T, anything else you want to add before we sign off?
No, just thank you guys again. The growth has been amazing. So keep tuning in and tell your friends and rate, review, all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And last thing, check out our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. It's the Underdog Fantasy app or underdogfantasy.com. Use promo code RAMS, LAFB, all one word, on your initial deposit. You get a match deposit up to $100. So tons of fun. Pick 2 to 5 players, over, under, and it's really easy to win some money. So super fun and simple. Every sport's there. Underdog Fantasy, Rams LAFB is the promo code. If you haven't already, Rams LAFB YouTube, hit that like and subscribe. We certainly appreciate it. LAFBnetwork.com is the website. At RL Anderson LAFB is Skinny T. At Ryan Dyrud LAFB or at LAFB Network is the main account. Thank you all. We appreciate you. Everyone enjoy the rest of your week. We'll be back in just a couple days with a lot more draft talk here on the Rams Skinny. Thank you.